Well, so welcome back everybody to the channel. I'm doing some different things now. I'm gonna do a book interview, my first live book interview. Well, it's not really live, it's pre-recorded, but to you guys it would look live. So I wanted to introduce my friend, my brother from another mother, Nikos Cox. I've known him since we went to Virginia Tech together. Shameless plug. I just happened to be drinking out of this Virginia Tech glass today. It wasn't planned. But he wrote this incredible book called Jurni, and I want him to tell us about it because I've read it and it's great. But Nikos, welcome to my little YouTube channel, my little humble abode on the internet. But
Sure.
tell us about the book and what the title means.
So the book, it honestly kind of started from a sketch. I'm a graphic designer in Northern Virginia, and I was working on some project, and I'm just sketching, just idle time,
Mm-hmm.
and I come up with this little sketch of a kid in an astronaut outfit, and literally I just started, putting together a story like, why is this kid in space, and what are they looking for, that kind of thing. And once I got the core idea of this story, I started looking for names. It originally had a different name. I have a cousin with some kids, and he has a young girl, and I was going to name it after her because she's about the same age as Journey is, but her brother's name is Journey. And the whole idea of space and her understanding death a little bit more, I thought Journey made more sense, right? So that's where the name came from.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Well, what inspired you to write the book then?
Um, Honestly, like I have ideas all the time for different stories, and a lot of them tend to be like movie ideas or a show idea. So this was originally supposed to be a short animated movie, but I'm
Oh
like, that
wow.
costs a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. It's gonna take a lot of time. I don't know how much time I have, right? So I thought, okay, I still want to get this idea out there, but how can I do it? And I actually took a film idea of making a storyboard, which is just like the visual plan of a movie shot by shot. And I thought, okay, I can do that, right? So I wrote out everything that was going to happen page by page, found an illustrator that could, do anything, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes,
And she
Brittany
put it
Lou.
together.
Shouts out to Brittany Lou. Oh my goodness. She did the
That's
doggone
wonderful.
thing in the illustrations.
Yeah, I don't think it really would not have been as impactful as at least people tell me it's been without her style and her ideas. Um, so yeah, like literally was to me it's like a storyboard of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I hope to tell the more full story. Like there's more written to it, but I couldn't tell it all in a illustrated book. So
Oh, there's more. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. So now that I know the book is just a preview to a bigger story, now I'm
Yeah.
nosy, but we're gonna stick with this book with this story. Cause
Cool.
I know that it was just really attention grabbing throughout. But anyway, before I get ahead of myself, I guess at what point did you realize you had to write this book? Because you were doing the storyboard, you were thinking about the movie idea, but when did you feel like you had to write it?
It took, I don't know, it was pretty quick. Like from that moment I made the sketch, I actually like, I don't know what happened to the piece of paper, but at some point I came back to it some weeks later and I saw
Hmm.
this sketch and that's when I started to develop the story. But it was pretty immediate. Like right then I thought, wait, that's a pretty good idea. I need to develop it. Even if I didn't do anything with it right then and
Mm-hmm.
there, I wanted to develop the whole story, the characters, all of that, so that at some point when I had the ability to make it the way I really wanted to, it was ready.
That is interesting. I guess, well, what are some of the things that you learned then while you were writing the book?
Writing is hard, especially for kids' books. um,
What
like
do you mean, Nikos?
it probably would have been easy to write like a 300-page technical manual or something, because there's certain things that you have to really simplify, and
Mm.
that can be really difficult to do because you're talking to an audience that's really young. So you're trying to explain something that most adults don't get, right, to someone who hasn't lived long enough to get it. So um, that was difficult, like because I could write it all, and I'm sending it to people that to adults, right, and they're like, oh yeah, we like this, that makes sense. And then it's like,
Mm.
all right, now you have to visualize this and communicate it to someone who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty difficult. But honestly, it made the process better over time because I learned how to simplify ideas, basically.
No, that makes sense, especially when you think about tragedy and how to explain that to a child. Like you said, like most adults have a hard time trying to like verbalize and explain and process their own feelings. Because Nikos, I got to tell you, when I opened up the first page and saw this,
Yeah.
I was like, well, Lord.
Kind of slapped you in the face a little bit.
Slapped you in the face. I was like, well, I got to see what happens. Like, because I feel like for a lot of people, you know, when it comes to tragedy and death, they see a lot of people who in their minds were giants or really strong people cry for the first time or experience like these overwhelming emotions for the first time. So when I saw that, I was like, I got to read to the next page. Like, I got to see what happens.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Like that's actually part of the there's more to the story part. Like it's almost like you just catch them in the middle of what's going on. So that's why it starts in this kind of, well, I would say high note. You might say low note, but depending on your perspective. But that's why it starts where it starts, because there's more to the story. So I figured it would be easier to start from there, so you understood exactly how she felt, as opposed to like explaining it step by step and, you know, hopefully you get there. It's like, no, this is the reality of the moment, and this is exactly why she goes on her journey. So
I see. Now that makes sense. Because I know with the name, at least, you were telling us how you came up with the name of the main character, but was Jurni herself inspired by a real person?
no, she wasn't. But I
Okay.
will say some personal experiences with family and friends passing away, and then other people that I know, fed into the story. Especially when you talk about immediate death, like people who you weren't expecting to pass away. You know, it's a lot different than someone who maybe they're sick or, you know, older. So I mean, I know that from personal experience as well, and just other people I know. So I figured that was an experience that I could communicate, but no, it's not really based on any real person.
No, I see. No, I was just curious because I know that when again, that first page took me some places. I was like, well, I guess it's going to open up a discussion with myself because when I saw this page, what it reminded me of when I was a kid, I was 8 years old, and my cousin, who was in her 20s, who I really, really admired, wanted to be like her. She had a 2-year-old son at the time. She was tragically killed in a car accident by a drunk driver.
Wow.
And I remember she was killed instantly from what I remember, but her son lived. And I remember as a kid being at the funeral, and you know how adults can process things. Like people had their own different versions of the story, like, well, this was a tragedy, or we should do this, or some people were like, well, you know, the good Lord is in control and this didn't happen outside of his watch. But as a kid, it's like, okay, but somebody explain to me, how is it that my cousin, who had her whole life in front of her, as far as I can see it, was just snatched away because somebody decided to drive drunk and hit her head on? So it was like the book, I feel like for me, was helpful in thinking through how to start those conversations. You know, even throughout the book, like looking at the different ways that Jurni's father is trying to explain to her, you know, what has happened. And that she even processes it. It's like, oh, like I feel like it's helpful to get the conversation started with the kid.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's one of those conversations that no matter how old you are, we all still struggle with it. It's not an easy thing to get through. So I think it's one of those, at least I hope it is, one of those books that helps start the conversation.
Right.
Because you're never going to have the right answer. You know, people come up with a lot of different answers for what's going on and what's happening and how to process it. But sometimes you just need to start, and that's a win, I think.
Yeah, I think so, because throughout the book, like you said, I would say that it started on a low note. You said high note. I would say low note. But I felt like throughout the book, though, it really did take us on a journey of, you know, helping her process that and realizing some other dreams and aspirations and things. But I'm not going to give it away. People are going to have to get the copy of the book. But tell people where they can get a copy of the book, Nikos.
Okay. Firstly, primarily through the publisher, Mascot Books. They've been really great to work with. The whole team. But you can also find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million. And it's on pre-order right now, but it'll be out in the next month or two. And Lord willing, we'll also have the e-version in English and Spanish. So. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, now that's exciting.
Yeah.
I know my neighbors are probably like, we'll be so glad when this girl has to go back to work because we never heard all this noise during the daytime.
It's cool.
But
Everybody's
anyway,
getting more familiar with the surroundings and the neighbors and all that. So.
I guess so. But yes, definitely please get a copy of the book. It's been really helpful, even as I think about, how to process tragedy with even grown people that I know, thinking about that. So I highly recommend it. It's a great book, easy read. But Nikos, I have to ask this too before, we let the people go, because this is supposed to be short. But I gotta know, what was your favorite book as a kid?
Oh, I can't remember the title. Even though you sent me this question, I can't remember the title, but it was the one about the fish with the colorful scales. Because like even the book itself had some kind of like weird printing thing where like it reflected when you like turn the book. And I just remember the vivid colors and imagery. Because normally you see that cover and sometimes you open it up and it's just not the same. Like great presentation on the outside, but you open it up and it's like, well, man, you spent all that money on the cover and what happened to the inside? But it was one of those books, it was the same all the way through. So you pick it up and it's got these little reflective fish on the front. And you just love to like flip it back and forth to see what new color might pop up next. But yeah, no, that was one of my favorite books, if I could remember the title.
If it
Somebody knows
only
what I'm
is.
talking about.
Somebody knows.
Yeah.
I was like, comment if you know, because I don't have the foggiest idea. I ain't no John Brown librarian.
I thought everybody read that book. I mean, it was just dope.
Know.
But no, yeah, that was my favorite book.
Oh, okay. Because now I was like, what were my favorite books? I think I used to like a lot of book series. Anyway, I liked them when they were more than one. Because for some reason, when I was a kid, I really liked to read, and I would get so invested in the life of the character. And I would be like, oh, the book is over. But if it was a series, I could be like, oh, I can read the next one.
Right,
so I like the Berenstein Bears, Nate the Great, the Cam Jensen series. And there was another one, the Babysitter's Club. Not the new school one they got now, but like the real old school one from the 80s where the characters were like 13 years old. I was like, I don't know. It was just, I liked reading the series.
Well, it was from like the Scholastic book fairs.
Yes!
With the list, you could pick out all your books. Yeah. No, I love those. I mean, we've come a long way. Like everything's PS4, Xbox, or social media. Like I remember being excited to go to those things and being able to find a new good book, But,
exactly. That is true. No, I remember the days. But anyway, look, Nikos, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm going to go ahead and hit the end button, but please definitely order Jurni. I'll put in the description box all the different ways that Nikos talked about how you can get the book, but please get your copy.